Hey guys, tonight we travel back to ancient China, a world of silk robes, ink scrolls, herbal brews, and winding river paths under moonlight. But not everything is as tranquil as it seems, because tonight you can't sleep. That's right, you're lying awake in a modest wooden home during the Han Dynasty, sometime around 150 CE, staring at the lattice ceiling above your head, listening to the faint rustle of bamboo outside your window. The night is quiet, save for the occasional creak of the house settling and the distant bark of a village dog. But your mind is racing. You toss onto your side, then your back, then your side again. The familiar woven mat beneath you feels suddenly uncomfortable. The cotton quilt that usually shields you from the mountain chill now feels stiflingly heavy. Your heart pounds in that peculiar rhythm of someone who knows there is nowhere else to be. But sleep refuses to come. And guess what? You probably wouldn't survive this. Not because insomnia is fatal, but because in ancient China, sleep wasn't just rest. It was harmony, health, the sign that your qi, the vital life force flowing through all living things, was balanced and strong. When you couldn't sleep, it wasn't merely an inconvenience, it was a cosmic alarm bell. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and check if you're subscribed to the channel, because several viewers have been telling me that YouTube is quietly removing their subscriptions. I'd hate for you to miss out on the next sleepy journey into history. And while you're here, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it over there? It amazes me every time to see how many of you are drifting off to sleep all around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly in the dim glow of the oil lamp, its faint flame trembling against the chill night air. Your room is small, walls of packed clay, wooden beams darkened with age, and the faint, earthy scent of stored millet rising from a basket nearby. Your father snores gently from the next room, oblivious to your restlessness. You glance toward the sliding door of carved elm, considering stepping outside for some air. But then you remember the stories. Spirits wander at night, especially those restless ghosts of people who, like you, could not find sleep in this life, and so cannot find rest in the next. You shiver, but not from the cold. Instead, you try what your grandmother always advised. You shift onto your back, breathe in deeply through your nose, hold it, then release through your mouth. Again, and yet, your mind keeps spinning like the water wheels that turn endlessly along the river at the edge of your village. You think of the rice fields needing tending at dawn, of the neighbor's hen that keeps escaping the fence, of the scroll of poetry you tried to memorize earlier but couldn't quite get right. Sleep feels as distant as the emperor's palace, which, in your imagination, gleams far away behind jade walls and guarded gates. Your grandmother once told you that when you can't sleep, it means your qi is blocked, that somewhere inside you, the energy that should be flowing like a peaceful river is instead pooled up, dammed by stress, imbalance, or maybe just too much roasted yam at supper. The Han Dynasty physician Zhang Zhongjing even wrote about this. Not that you've read his scrolls firsthand, but your village healer often recites his teachings while grinding herbs. Historians still argue about the origins of traditional Chinese medicine, debating which dynasty truly codified practices like herbal remedies and acupuncture. But for you, none of that matters right now. What matters is that it's well past midnight. The rooster won't crow for hours, and yet your eyes refuse to close. Your hand reaches instinctively for the worn cotton pouch hanging from the beam above your bed, a small charm your mother stitched for you, filled with chrysanthemum petals and a pinch of dried wormwood. She said it would ward off nightmares and draw in peaceful dreams. You press it to your nose. Inhale deeply. The faint floral bitterness calms you just a little. You close your eyes, willing sleep to find you, but instead your mind drifts to tomorrow. If you can't sleep, how will you rise with the others for the morning qigong exercises at the temple square? How will you carry water from the well without stumbling? Your thoughts loop and twist, refusing to let go. And so, after one more frustrated sigh, you sit up fully, push aside the quilt, and swing your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor is cold beneath your bare feet. You stand slowly, listening for any sounds from your family, nothing but your father's steady snore and the rhythmic drip of water from the roof. Quietly, you slide open the door and step out into the small courtyard, bathed in silver moonlight. The plum tree at the center, now bare of blossoms, casts its spindly shadows across the packed earth. You look up. The night sky above is vast and clear, stars scattered like grains of millet across a black silk cloth. You take a breath of the crisp air, hoping the stillness of the world around you can find its way inside your restless body. And standing there, alone in the quiet of ancient China, you realize you're not the only one who has struggled to sleep. For millennia, others have stared up at the very same stars, their minds too full, their bodies too tense, searching for that elusive bridge between wakefulness and dreams. But tonight, perhaps, you will cross that bridge too, or perhaps you will seek help from the healer, from tradition, from practices woven into the very fabric of your culture. But that's for tomorrow. For now, you take one more breath, gaze one more time at the vast, indifferent stars, and step quietly back inside. You lie back down on your woven mat, but you already know that tonight, sleep will not come easily. The moon has shifted higher in the sky, casting new shadows through the latticework of your window, painting intricate patterns on the earthen wall. The rooster remains silent, but your mind is louder than ever. Your grandmother's voice echoes in your memory. When sleep won't come, it's your chi asking for help. And so, you decide, tomorrow, you'll visit the village healer. You rise again, not out of restlessness this time, but resolution. You gather your simple robe, knotting the sash loosely around your waist, and tuck your hands into your sleeves as you step into the cool, early morning air. The village path is silent, the soil packed hard from centuries of feet just like yours. The bamboo groves sway softly at the edges, whispering secrets to one another in the dark. Your footsteps are nearly soundless as you make your way toward the healer's home, a small building marked by bundles of dried herbs hanging from the eaves. The healer is already awake, of course. She always is, like some timeless spirit who belongs more to the cycles of nature than to the calendar. Her small fire crackles gently inside as she grinds licorice root and jujube seeds with a mortar worn smooth from decades of use. She doesn't look up when you enter, as if she's known for hours that you'd be coming. Couldn't sleep again? She asks, her voice raspy but kind. You nod, embarrassed by the simplicity of your answer. She gestures for you to sit on the straw mat across from her, and you fold your legs beneath you, smoothing your robe as you do. Tell me what troubles you, she says, though you suspect she already knows. The healer begins her examination, not with your pulse, but with your eyes. In ancient China, a skilled practitioner could glean much from the sheen of your pupils, the color of your tongue, the sound of your breath. Only then does she take your wrist, her fingers resting lightly on your pulse points, feeling the rhythm of your blood, as though it's a river. She has studied her entire life. She closes her eyes, leaning into the quiet between the beats, then nods almost imperceptibly. Your heart fire is too strong, she murmurs. You've heard this diagnosis before. Too much thinking, too much worrying, too much living. Your chi is blocked, tangled up like a fisherman's net, left too long in the river. And so, she begins her work. From one of the baskets beside her, she draws out a small pouch of swanzao ren, the sour jujube seed, long treasured for its ability to calm the spirit and invite restful sleep. She measures it out with practiced precision, adding poria mushroom for its grounding energy, licorice to harmonize the mixture, and a pinch of Anna Marina to clear the lingering heat. The smell of the herbs rises slowly as she places them in a small earthen pot over the coals. A thin plume of steam curls upward, fragrant and earthy, promising the kind of serenity your racing mind hasn't known in weeks. As the tea brews, she hands you a smooth jade stone, instructing you to hold it against your palm. Feel its coolness, she says softly. Let it remind your spirit to settle. You obey, cradling the stone like a fragile bird, tracing the ridges worn into it by countless other insomniacs before you. The healer doesn't fill the silence with chatter. She lets it sit, letting the crackle of the fire and the rustle of bamboo outside be enough. Finally, she pours the dark amber liquid into a small porcelain cup, sliding it gently across the mat to you. You lift it, inhale the complex aroma, both bitter and faintly sweet, and sip. It coats your tongue with an earthy warmth, settling in your belly like an anchor, pulling you down, back to earth. Drink this each night, she says. Sleep is not about forcing your body to be still. It's about reminding your spirit that it's safe to rest. You nod, grateful, but also skeptical. Will tea alone be enough to untangle this knot of wakefulness? Historians still argue about the exact origins of such herbal formulas in traditional Chinese medicine, whether they evolved through observation, spiritual intuition, or centuries of trial and error. But for you, this is not history, it's hope. You set the empty cup down and thank the healer with a deep bow, your hands pressed together at your chest. She smiles gently, but says nothing more. You step back, into the pre-dawn light, the horizon just beginning to smudge from black into the faintest shade of gray. The village rooftops glow with a thin frost, and the river beyond whispers quietly in its ancient tongue. You hold the warmth of the tea in your chest as you walk back home, this time with a little more calm in your step, and the jade stone still tucked securely into your robe. Maybe tonight the sour jujube will do its magic, or maybe sleep, as always, will remain a pursuit just out of reach. But for now, at least, you have a remedy, and that, in ancient China, is more than most can ask for. Back home, you set the small earthenware pot of herbs beside your sleeping mat, the faint aroma of sour jujube still lingering in your breath. But as you lie down, pulling the coarse cotton quilt over your chest, your body refuses to yield to the warmth. Your mind is still moving. It loops, it wanders, it resists. Sleep is not something you can demand. After all, it is something that must be invited, coaxed, and allowed to come in its own time. The healer's tea may calm your body, but your thoughts are still busy weaving stories of the day ahead. Will the rice seedlings survive the coming frost? Did you remember to patch the hole in your sandal? Is the rooster finally well after last week's illness? And just as another anxious thought takes shape, you remember the healer's words. Your spirit must feel safe to rest. So, you sit up once again and reach for the smooth jade stone she gave you earlier. It is cool in your palm, smooth from centuries of use, as if generations before, you also clutched it in their own moments of sleepless frustration. You press it gently to your chest, allowing the stone's grounded energy to pull you back into your body, away from the chaotic landscapes of your thoughts. But still, your mind wrestles. So tomorrow, the healer said, you must return for something else. Acupuncture. The idea both intrigues and unsettles you. Tiny needles, piercing your skin, for the sake of sleep? Yes, because in ancient China, insomnia was seen not merely as a problem of the mind, but of the entire energetic body. When qi does not flow properly, the mind cannot settle. When meridians are blocked, the spirit cannot rest, and thus the healer has prescribed a session. You try to recall what you've heard about this practice. Neighbors have spoken of it with a mix of reverence and fear, some describing it as miraculous, others wincing at the memory of cold metal piercing their skin. But the healer assured you, it does not hurt when it is done correctly. The Huangdi Neijing, or the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine, the foundational text of traditional Chinese medicine, outlines specific meridian points that must be stimulated to restore sleep. The Anmian point, located behind the ears, the Shenmen point on the wrist, known as the gate of the spirit, and most importantly for you, the Yintang, right between your eyebrows, where tension seems to coil like a snake when your mind is restless. Historians still argue about when exactly acupuncture emerged in its current form, some dating it back to the Warring States period, others insisting it was codified much later. But for you, in this moment, it is neither a scholarly debate nor an ancient curiosity. It is a lifeline. You lie back again, this time not with frustration, but with cautious hope. Tomorrow, the healer will guide you through this strange ritual, and maybe, just maybe, your nights will stop feeling like battles and start feeling like journeys. Your breath slows slightly. The image of those acupuncture points floating in your mind like tiny stars mapped onto the human body. You imagine the healer's skilled hands pressing, finding the right spots, balancing your chi like a river untangled from a knot of reeds. Perhaps, in ancient China, they understood something we have long forgotten, that sleep is not about shutting down. It is about reconnecting with your body, with your breath, with the flow of life that moves through you and everything else. Outside, the bamboo rustles again. A distant bird calls, confused by the early hour. The village water wheel creaks faintly, turning as it has done for generations, never rushing, never stopping, always flowing, just like chi, just like time. You press the jade to your chest once more, letting its coolness remind you that tomorrow relief may come. And for the first time tonight, you feel your eyelids grow heavier, the tea's warmth mingling with the faint promise of acupuncture to come. Maybe this time you will outlast your thoughts. Maybe this time sleep will find you. You close your eyes and listen to the world breathing softly around you. The next morning arrives with the soft clang of the village bell, its bronze mouth announcing the dawn across tiled rooftops and mist-laced fields. You wake with the familiar grogginess of yet another night, half spent in wakefulness, half surrendered to restless dreams. But today feels different. Today, you're going to try something that, for centuries, has been a cornerstone of healing in this land: acupuncture. You pull your robe tighter around your shoulders and make your way through the winding lanes of the village. Vendors are already setting up their stalls. Baskets of fresh lotus roots, bundles of scallions, and the sharp fragrance of fermented tofu drifting through the air. The sky is a pale wash of blue-gray. The mountains faint silhouettes beyond the rice paddies. When you arrive at the healer's home, she is, as always, already at work, tending to a pot of boiling herbs, while carefully inspecting a bundle of long, slender needles laid out on a cloth. She doesn't greet you with words. Instead, she gestures to the woven mat in the corner, and you understand immediately what to do. You sit, then lie back as instructed, resting your head on the small bamboo pillow she places beneath your neck. The thatched roof above you is dappled with early morning light as it filters through the slats. Your heart pounds a little faster, but the healer's voice cuts through your nerves. Breathe, and so you do. In, out, in, out. You feel the coolness of her fingers as she gently presses along your wrist, locating the Shenmen point, the gate of the spirit. A faint pressure, a pause, then the first needle slides in. You expect pain. Instead, you feel nothing. No, that's not quite true. You feel something, but it isn't pain. It's as if a small pulse of warmth radiates outward from the needle, like a ripple on a still pond. Another point, this time just behind your ear. The Anmian, the peaceful sleep point. Then, the Yintang, right between your brows. Your face, which had been clenched tight from weeks of poor sleep, begins to loosen without your permission. Your jaw slackens, your shoulders drop, the healer continues. Her movements deliberate, reverent, as though she is stitching together something that has come undone within you. As she works, she tells you, softly, about the ancient belief that insomnia is not a curse, but a sign that the spirit has become unmoored from its place in the body, that through precise, intentional guidance, it can be welcomed home. You stare up at the ceiling, focusing on the patterns in the bamboo slats, letting your breath deepen as each needle finds its mark. Historians still argue about how effective acupuncture truly was in ancient times, whether it was the physical act of stimulating nerves or simply the psychological comfort of ritual that made it work. But lying here, feeling your body shift in ways you can't quite explain, you understand that for you, it doesn't matter. The effect is real. Your fingers unclench, your brow smooths, even your thoughts, usually a frenzied flock, begin to quiet. The healer steps back, allowing the needles to do their work. And for several long moments, the only sound is the crackling of the fire and the faint rustle of wind outside. You feel as though you are both fully here and elsewhere, drifting on some gentle current beneath the surface of consciousness. Perhaps this is what it means when they say the spirit returns to the body, not in a flash of revelation, but in a slow, almost imperceptible reunion, like two old friends finding each other in the dark. After some time, minutes, an hour, you've lost track. The healer returns, her shadow crossing your face for just a second before her fingers gently remove each needle, one by one. You hardly feel them leave, only a vague sensation of space where once there was tension. When she finishes, she places a hand lightly on your shoulder and says only, "Rest," and you do. Not sleep yet, but rest. The kind you didn't realize you'd been missing for so long. You sit up slowly, as if rising from deep water, blinking in the soft morning light. The healer offers you a small cup of warm chrysanthemum tea, and you accept, sipping its floral bitterness with gratitude. You bow deeply, both hands clasped before you, thanking her not just for the treatment, but for this unfamiliar sensation of ease that now settles over your chest. On your walk home, the village has fully awakened. Children dart between stalls. Merchants call out their wares, and the air is alive with the clatter of carts and the laughter of neighbors. But within you, there is something quieter, a stillness, a softness. Maybe, just maybe, tonight will be different. You breathe deeply, taking in the mingling scents of incense, soy sauce, and early spring blossoms as you make your way back through the winding lanes. You don't know yet if this is the end of your sleepless nights, but you do know this. For the first time in weeks, you're no longer afraid of going to bed, because now you have tools, traditions, a path forward carved by countless generations before you who also once stared up at these same stars, longing for sleep. And maybe, just maybe, their wisdom will guide you there too. That evening, after a quiet dinner of millet porridge and steamed greens, you find yourself sitting by the small hearth in your home, staring at the gentle flicker of the flame. Your body feels different, looser, warmer, as if something tightly coiled inside you has finally begun to unwind. But you know there is more to be done. Because in ancient China, treating insomnia is never about just one solution. It's about rituals, layers of care, weaving together the physical, emotional, and spiritual threads into a single, harmonious whole. So tonight, you try something new. You gather 3 smooth river stones, worn by years of current and time, and place them carefully by the hearth. Your grandmother told you that warming these stones and placing them near your feet at night helps to anchor the spirit, preventing it from wandering too far while you sleep. This ancient practice, simple yet profound, is a form of reassurance, not for the body alone, but for the soul. You crouch by the fire, rotating the stones slowly until they radiate a soft heat, then carry them delicately in a woven basket to your sleeping mat. You nestle them near your feet beneath the quilt, feeling their warmth seep through the fabric, grounding you in place. It's a small gesture, but one that your ancestors have trusted for centuries. Outside, the village begins to quiet as neighbors extinguish their lanterns, and the faint sounds of nighttime insects replace the bustle of the day. You lie back, adjusting your quilt and allowing your toes to stretch toward the comforting heat of the stones. Your eyes trace the wooden beams above, then settle shut, but sleep still resists. Your mind, ever loyal to its restless patterns, wanders again, this time to thoughts of dreams. You remember how the village elder once said that dreams are messages from the ancestors, or sometimes signs from the cosmos itself. In ancient China, particularly within Daoist philosophy, dreams are not dismissed as mere nonsense, but regarded as vital clues to your inner state. Your recent insomnia might not be just a physical imbalance. It could also be that your spirit has something left unsaid, some lesson unlearned, some message you've yet to receive. And so, you consider another path, visiting the Taoist temple, perched on the hill outside the village, where monks interpret dreams and offer guidance on restoring spiritual balance. The very thought fills you with both curiosity and apprehension. You've heard the stories of seekers climbing that mist-wrapped hill, bringing their troubled dreams to the abbot, who would listen in silence before offering cryptic advice, sometimes a parable, sometimes a poem, and sometimes simply a direction to change a habit, a thought, or a belief. Historians still argue about the exact nature of Taoist dream interpretation, whether it was a spiritual exercise or simply an early form of psychotherapy cloaked in mysticism. But in your world, it is taken seriously. Dreams are rivers through which the subconscious flows. To ignore them is to ignore part of yourself. You shift on your mat, the warm stones still nestled by your feet, and you imagine what it would be like to make that climb tomorrow, to stand before the carved wooden gates of the temple, incense smoke curling into the mountain air, and speak aloud the simple truth: I cannot sleep. It feels vulnerable, but also hopeful. Maybe what you need is not another herb or needle, but a new way of listening to yourself, a new way of paying attention to the signs your body and spirit have been trying to send you all along. The fire by the hearth dies down to glowing embers. Your family's breathing slows in their own sleeping quarters, and you, lying there with your warmed stones and your restless heart, make a quiet promise to yourself. Tomorrow, you will visit the temple. You will seek guidance, not just for sleep, but for understanding. Because in ancient China, sleep is not just the absence of waking, it is a state of harmony with the body, with nature, with the unseen forces that shape your life in ways you may never fully comprehend. And if your sleep is broken, perhaps your harmony is too. You exhale slowly, the heat from the stones lulling your feet into a calm, heavy stillness, even as your mind rehearses the steps you'll take tomorrow. Up the winding path, past the plum trees, to the temple gates, for now you close your eyes again and wait for either sleep or the sunrise. The next morning, mist coils low over the rice paddies as you set out on the stone path that leads to the Daoist temple. The village is still quiet. Only the distant clatter of a pot and the low murmur of a neighbor feeding his ox break the early silence. Your feet move instinctively along the familiar route, past the gnarled plum trees, now heavy with spring blossoms, their sweet scent thickening the cool air. The path curves steadily upward, winding along the terraced hillside, each step pulling you further from the hum of daily life and closer to the stillness you've been seeking. You carry nothing with you but the smooth jade stone, now a talisman tucked securely in your robe pocket, its familiar weight grounding you with every stride. As you climb, you think of the stories elders tell about this place, that the temple has stood here for over 200 years, its walls witnessing the passage of countless pilgrims who, like you, came seeking answers not easily found in the world below. Some came for physical healing, others for clarity, and many, like you, simply because they couldn't sleep. At last, the temple emerges through the mist, a simple structure of dark, weathered wood, its tiled roof sloping gracefully like the outstretched wings of a crane. Red lanterns sway gently from the eaves, their faded calligraphy whispering blessings into the breeze. At the entrance, a pair of stone fu lions guard the threshold, their silent, stoic expressions both welcoming and formidable. You pause, bowing deeply out of instinct, hands clasped before you, then step quietly onto the polished stone floor of the courtyard. The air here feels different, thicker, but also more serene, as if the worries you carried up the hill have softened, dispersed into the mountain mist. A monk in simple robes appears, his head shaved, his eyes calm as a still pond. Without asking your name, he gestures for you to follow him through the winding corridors of the temple, past flickering altars of incense, past rows of hanging prayer scrolls that flutter gently as you pass. Finally, he leads you to a small inner chamber, bare except for a low wooden table, a cushion, and a pot of tea steaming gently beside a worn set of bamboo flutes. He gestures for you to sit. You do, folding your legs beneath you, feeling the cool smoothness of the stone beneath your knees. The monk pours tea with slow, deliberate movements, then sets the cup in front of you without a word. You bow again, lift the cup, and sip. The warmth spreads through you in a familiar, comforting wave. And then, only then, does the monk speak. Why are you here? You hesitate, then answer simply, I cannot sleep. He nods, as though this answer is both entirely expected and profoundly important. He leans back, folds his hands into his sleeves, and closes his eyes for a long moment before speaking again. Perhaps your spirit is too full. You tilt your head, uncertain what he means. Sensing your confusion, he continues. In Daoist thought, we do not force the body to rest. We make space within ourselves for rest, to arrive naturally. If the mind is crowded, restless, or grasping, sleep will be like a bird that you chase, but can never catch. You think about all the nights you've spent chasing that very bird, trying to trap it, to force it into your grasp, with herbs, with rituals, with sheer will. And here, the monk is telling you, that's not the way. He gestures toward the small bamboo flute resting by the table. Sometimes, he says softly, a melody can create space where words and thoughts cannot. Without asking permission, he picks up the flute, raises it to his lips, and begins to play a simple, haunting tune, one that rises and falls with the gentle inevitability of the wind moving through the mountain passes. You close your eyes, and for the first time in weeks, your mind does not immediately leap to a new worry, a new problem, a new chore. It simply listens. The melody fills the space within you, not with noise, but with a kind of spaciousness, as if your spirit is slowly exhaling after holding its breath for too long. The monk finishes the tune and sets the flute gently back down. You must make room, he says again, for sleep to come. He instructs you to practice sitting quietly each evening before bed, focusing not on banishing thoughts, but on letting them pass like clouds drifting across the moon. Your mind is not the problem, he adds. It is simply too awake. You must invite it to rest, not order it. Historians still argue about how central meditation and music were to ancient Chinese medical practices for insomnia. Some claim they were side rituals. Others insist they were essential, perhaps even more important than herbs or needles. But here, in this simple temple chamber, there is no argument. There is only this: the slow rise of steam from your tea, the faint echo of flute notes still lingering in the air, and the first real sense of quiet you've known in months. You bow again, deeply, and thank the monk, who simply smiles and pours you more tea. As you leave the temple, descending the same path you climbed this morning, you notice the mist has lifted. The mountains stand clear against the sky, their jagged peaks now lit by the pale glow of late morning, and within you, something else has lifted too. Not the insomnia, at least not yet, but the fear of it. The idea that sleep is something you must conquer. You walk slowly back toward the village, your heart just a little lighter, your step a little more sure. Tonight, when you lie down beside your warm stones, perhaps that bird of a sleep will finally perch quietly beside you, or perhaps not. But either way, you now know. You don't need to chase it. You simply need to make space for it to arrive. That evening, you prepare for bed differently. No longer do you rush through your nightly tasks in a quiet panic, hoping that somehow sleep will ambush you. Instead, you approach bedtime as the monk advised, slowly, deliberately, like setting the stage for a guest you hope will visit, but know you cannot summon by force. You begin by lighting a small stick of incense, the familiar scent of sandalwood, curling lazily through the air, settling into the corners of the room like a gentle mist. The flame flickers softly against the walls of your modest home, dancing in time with the rhythm of your breath. Then you retrieve the small sachet of herbs your grandmother gave you, filled with chrysanthemum petals, mugwort, and a few dried sprigs of lavender she purchased from a traveling merchant months ago. She always said that the scent of these herbs calms the spirit and soothes restless thoughts. You tie the sachet above your bed, letting it sway slightly from the wooden beam, its aroma mixing with the sandalwood, weaving a subtle tapestry of fragrance in the air. Outside your window, the moon is just beginning to rise, its pale glow outlining the shapes of the familiar bamboo stalks and the gently sloping roofs of neighboring homes. You place the warmed river stones by your feet once again, appreciating their earthy weight and heat. But tonight, there is one more step. You kneel beside your sleeping mat, rest your hands on your thighs, and sit quietly as the monk taught you, letting your eyes drift half closed. You focus not on stopping your thoughts, but on simply noticing them. One drifts by, the unfinished basket you've been weaving for days now. Another, the upcoming festival of lanterns, and whether your younger brother will insist on carrying his too close to the flame again. And then another, the question of whether your sleeplessness will persist, or whether tonight will be the turning point. But rather than clinging to any of these, you simply let them pass, like leaves floating downstream, carried away by the current of your attention without effort, without resistance. Historians still argue whether practices like this, akin to mindfulness meditation, were formalized in ancient China or arose naturally as part of everyday life. Some claim these moments of quiet reflection were spiritual exercises tied to Taoist philosophy. Others believe they were simply the inevitable result of living in harmony with the natural world, without clocks, screens, or the constant noise of modern life. But here, in your simple home, none of that matters. What matters is that for the first time in a long while, you feel your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, and your chest expand with a full, unhurried breath. After several minutes, you open your eyes, extinguish the incense, and lie down on your mat, tucking the quilt gently over your body. The sachet of herbs sways slightly above you, releasing one last faint wisp of aroma. Your toes find the warmth of the stones, and you close your eyes, not to force sleep, but to invite it. And for the first time, in what feels like months, you don't brace yourself for the long, restless night ahead. You don't run through endless strategies or berate yourself for failing to sleep like others seem to do so easily. Instead, you lie there, simply being, allowing the warmth of the stones, the scent of the herbs, and the quiet echo of the monk's flute from earlier today to fill the space within you. The moonlight creeps slowly across the floorboards, marking time in its patient, ancient way. You roll onto your side, sigh deeply, and notice something remarkable. You're not fighting sleep. You're not even thinking about it. You're simply ready. Whether it comes tonight or not, you know that this ritual, this space you've created, is enough. Sleep is no longer an enemy to be conquered. It is a friend who will visit when the time is right. And with that final thought, you feel your body soften, your breath deepen, and your mind quiet. Outside, the bamboo rustles gently. A night bird calls once, then falls silent, and within your chest, your heart beats steadily, calmly, unafraid. You close your eyes and wait for the guest you've prepared so carefully to welcome. The next morning, you awaken not to the familiar, sharp ache of sleeplessness, but to the soft light of dawn easing its way into your room through the cracks in the wooden shutters. Your eyes open slowly, and for a brief, blissful moment, you don't even remember that sleep was something you struggled with. It simply happened. You stretch your arms above your head, feeling a gentle warmth in your muscles instead of the brittle stiffness that had become your morning companion. Could it be that the simple rituals, the warmed stones, the sachet of herbs, the evening meditation, have already begun to weave their magic? Or perhaps, more than magic, they have restored something far older, something simpler, a rhythm. In ancient China, this rhythm was not just personal, it was communal, seasonal, even cosmic. Your grandmother often reminded you that to live well, you must live in harmony with the rhythms of yin and yang, of the five elements, of the seasons themselves. Insomnia, she would say, was not a sign that something was wrong with you, but that something was out of balance. And so today, you decide to seek the advice of someone who has spent his life studying this balance, the village scholar. His home is at the edge of the village, nestled against a small hill, thick with wild plum trees and flowering shrubs. You make your way there slowly, greeting neighbors along the path, exchanging pleasantries about the weather and the first appearance of the season's swallows nesting in the eaves. By the time you arrive, the scholar is already seated beneath the ancient ginkgo tree in his courtyard, unrolling a scroll while sipping from a delicate porcelain cup. He looks up as you approach, his long beard shifting slightly in the breeze, and smiles. "You look well rested," he says, his voice both kind and teasing. You bow politely, then sit across from him on the low wooden bench. "I slept better," you admit, "but I'm seeking to understand why I couldn't sleep at all for so long." The scholar nods slowly, as if this question is one he has heard countless times, in countless seasons. He leans forward slightly and begins. "In our tradition, sleeplessness is often the result of excessive yang energy, the active, fiery force that propels us through the day. But when yang dominates the evening, it prevents the body from settling into yin, the cool, restorative force necessary for sleep." You nod, recognizing yourself in his description. You've always been quick to action, always thinking ahead, preparing, worrying. He continues, pointing to the scroll laid out on the table between you. It's an ancient diagram of the five elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, all interacting in cycles of creation and destruction. In your case, he says, tracing a line from a fire to earth with his finger, the fire of your mind has been burning too brightly, exhausting your earth, the center of your being, your grounding force. You watch, fascinated, as he moves next to water, the element of rest, reflection, and calm. To restore sleep, he says, You must nourish your water, calm your fire, and strengthen your earth. He then describes practical ways to do this: eating more cooling foods in the evening, things like mung bean soup, chrysanthemum tea, and pear compote. Spending time walking slowly in nature at dusk, rather than working until the last light. And most importantly, adopting evening rituals that transition your body and mind from yang to yin. Meditation, quiet conversation, gentle music. You listen intently, realizing how much of your recent nights were spent clinging to daytime energy, refusing to let the day end, afraid of what the night might bring. Historians still argue about the origins and precise interpretations of the five elements theory, debating whether it was primarily a medical, cosmological, or philosophical framework. But for you, in this quiet courtyard, under the broad leaves of the ginkgo tree, it feels like all of these at once: an explanation, a guide, and a comfort. The scholar pours you a cup of jasmine tea, its floral scent drifting lazily between you as the morning sunlight dapples the scrolls on the table. You sip slowly, letting the warmth of the tea echo the warmth now blooming gently in your chest. I think I understand now, you say softly, that sleep isn't just about being tired enough, but about being in balance. The scholar smiles, pleased. It's about recognizing that night is not the enemy of the day, but its natural companion, just as rest is not the opposite of action, but its necessary counterpart. You bow deeply, thanking him for his wisdom, and stand to leave. As you walk back toward your home, you notice how the sunlight catches the tops of the plum trees, how the village dogs stretch lazily in the shade, how even the sounds of the market seem softer than usual. Or maybe it's not that they've changed. Maybe it's you. Tonight, you know what you will do. Prepare your evening meal mindfully. Walk slowly at sunset. Warm your stones. Hang your herbs. Sit quietly before bed and trust that sleep will come, not because you force it, but because you've made space for it to arrive. And if it doesn't, that's all right too, because now you understand. You are not broken. You are simply learning to listen to the rhythms of your life again. That evening, you follow the scholar's advice to the letter. As the sun dips behind the distant hills, painting the sky in streaks of apricot and indigo, you set down your woven basket and slip off your sandals, letting your bare feet feel the cool earth of the village path. You walk slowly, more slowly than you ever have before, past the familiar rice paddies and the low stone wall that keeps the goats from wandering too far. The air is filled with the soft hum of crickets and the occasional distant call of a night bird. Each step feels like an invitation to let go of the day's worries, of the list of tasks always running through your mind, of the ancient habit of rushing toward everything, even sleep. The scholar's words echo softly in your mind. Let the day recede and make space for the night. You pass the old willow tree near the bend in the river, its branches draped like ribbons of green silk, and pause for a moment to watch the slow current move past. The river, you realize, never forces itself forward. It flows patiently, persistently, bending around obstacles, trusting that it will find its way. Perhaps that's how you should think about sleep too. not as something to chase, but as something that will arrive when the conditions are right, when there is enough space for it to slip quietly into your life. By the time you return home, dusk has deepened into evening, and the paper lanterns in front of the neighbors' homes are beginning to flicker to life, casting soft golden halos onto the packed earth streets. You prepare a simple evening meal, a bowl of mung bean soup, cool and nourishing, just as the scholar advised, along with a few slices of poached pear, their natural sweetness soothing after the long day. The familiar routines feel different now, not chores, but rituals, each one a step closer to creating that space for rest. You wash your hands carefully, pour yourself a cup of chrysanthemum tea, and sit on the threshold of your home, watching the last traces of daylight vanish behind the distant mountains. Then you return inside, light a small oil lamp, and prepare your sleeping space. The warmed river stones carefully placed by your feet, the sachet of herbs hung freshly above your bed, its faint scent already filling the room. And finally, you sit quietly on your mat, legs folded beneath you, eyes half closed, allowing your breath to slow naturally. No counting, no controlling, just noticing. Inhale, exhale. The thoughts come, of course. They always do. A half-formed memory of the market stall you passed that morning. A brief worry about tomorrow's weather and whether it will delay the planting. The faintest pang of a longing for a future you can't quite name. But now you let them come and go, like clouds passing, before the moon, neither clinging to them nor pushing them away. You simply sit quietly in the gathering dark, allowing your body and mind to settle at their own pace. Historians still argue about whether practices like this, simple, mindful observation, were common among ordinary villagers in ancient China, or whether they were primarily the domain of monks and scholars. But you know, sitting here, that these practices belong to anyone willing to listen to the rhythms of their own life. After a time, you extinguish the oil lamp, crawl beneath your quilt, and stretch your toes toward the warm stones. The night is still, save for the faint rustle of bamboo in the courtyard and the rhythmic drip of water from the eaves. You close your eyes, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you don't wonder whether you'll fall asleep. You simply lie there, at peace with the night, trusting that whatever happens next is as it should be. Outside, the moon rises higher, casting its silver light across the village rooftops, bathing everything in a quiet, ancient glow. And inside, your breath slows, your muscles soften, and your mind, at last, grows still. You wake before dawn, but this time it isn't exhaustion that pulls you from sleep. It's something gentler, something quieter, a sense of having rested enough. The air is still cool, and the faintest blush of pre-dawn light presses at the horizon. Beyond the bamboo grove, you sit up slowly, stretching your arms above your head, noticing that for once your shoulders don't ache with tension, your jaw isn't clenched, and your thoughts aren't racing ahead of you before your feet even touch the ground. For the first time in weeks, you feel like you've woken with your spirit intact, instead of leaving it trailing somewhere behind in the dark corridors of a sleepless night. The river stones at your feet have cooled, their warmth having done its work through the night. anchoring you to your own body while your mind drifted elsewhere. You lift them, place them carefully back into their woven basket, and smile faintly, thinking how something so simple could make such a difference. You roll up your cotton quilt and open the wooden shutters to let the soft morning light spill into the room. The village is just beginning to stir, smoke curling lazily from the nearest chimney, the faint clang of a pot lid in a neighbor's kitchen, and the low hum of an ox being led out for the day's work. You take a moment to breathe it all in, the smell of damp earth, the faint sweetness of plum blossoms drifting through the air, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you made it through the night with grace. Later that morning, you make your way back to the healer's hut, eager to share your progress. She greets you with the same quiet nod, already at work grinding a fresh batch of Swanzhao Ren for another restless villager, no doubt beginning their own journey toward sleep. When you tell her that you slept, truly slept, her eyes soften, but she does not seem surprised. Instead, she simply says, "You created the conditions. Sleep did the rest." You sit with her for a while, sipping tea, watching as she carefully bundles dried lotus leaves and ties them with thin strips of bamboo fiber. As you talk, she reminds you that this process is not a one-time fix, but a continuous practice, one that shifts with the seasons, with your health, and with the ebbs and flows of your own spirit. In the heat of summer, she says, your body may resist sleep again. Then you will cool it with mint tea and walks at dusk. In the cold of winter, when the nights are long and heavy, you will warm it with ginger broth and moxibustion. You nod, understanding now that sleep, like everything else in your life, is woven into the changing rhythms of the world around you. The healer also tells you that in ancient China, it was common for families to pass down their own sleep remedies, small rituals, and personal modifications layered atop the core teachings of traditional Chinese medicine. Some families favored hanging specific amulets near the bed. Others practiced evening qigong, gentle movements to coax the body into restfulness. And some, like your own, relied on the comfort of herbs, warm stones, and the quiet presence of family members gathered around the hearth in the evening, telling stories until the night crept softly over them all. Historians still argue whether these folk practices were scientifically effective or merely psychological comforts passed from generation to generation. But sitting here, feeling the steady pulse of your own heartbeat and the absence of that relentless tension that once gripped your chest at night, you realize that it doesn't really matter. They worked, and they continue to work. Before you leave, the healer presses a small bundle into your hands. A new sachet of herbs, this one with a slightly different aroma, more earthy, with hints of licorice and poria mushroom. For balance, she says simply, you thank her deeply, bowing once again, then make your way home through the now bustling village. Vendors are shouting their morning greetings. The blacksmith is already hammering away at a new plow blade, and children race past you, laughing as they chase after a dog carrying a stolen scrap of cloth. You pause for a moment near the village well, watching the sunlight sparkle on the water's surface, and you realize something that makes you smile. You no longer dread the approach of night. You no longer brace yourself for the battle. that sleep once was. Instead, you look forward to it. The rituals, the quiet, the slow, gentle descent into rest. You understand now that sleep is not something you must wrestle into submission, but something you can welcome with care and intention. And that, perhaps, is the greatest lesson of all. As you walk the rest of the way home, past the familiar sights and sounds of your village, you know that tonight, when you lie down beneath your quilt, warmed stones at your feet, and the faint scent of herbs above your head, you will do so not with fear, but with peace. And sleep, faithful and patient, will find you there. The days that follow unfold with a newfound ease you hadn't thought possible just a few weeks ago. Each evening, as the sun dips behind the terraced hills, you prepare for bed with the same quiet rituals that have now become second nature. Warming the river stones, steeping a small pot of chrysanthemum tea, and hanging a fresh sachet of herbs above your sleeping mat. But now, these acts feel less like desperate remedies for insomnia and more like sacred gestures of care, gentle signals to your body and spirit that it is safe, once again, to rest. You've begun to notice how your entire approach to the day has changed as well. Instead of pushing yourself late into the night, working under the dim light of the oil lamp, you now let the setting sun signal a natural slowing of your pace. In the mornings, you rise not with exhaustion, but with quiet gratitude, your breath deep and even, your mind no longer gripped by that once familiar fog of sleeplessness. One afternoon, while gathering lotus roots from the marsh with your neighbor, you find yourself recounting the simple practices that have helped you, how the herbs calmed your spirit, how the acupuncture seemed to untangle something deep within you, how the monk's flute offered a new way to think about space and quiet. Your neighbor listens intently, then smiles, admitting that she too has struggled with sleep lately, especially with the harvest festival approaching and the extra work it brings. You promise to bring her a sachet of your favorite herbs and to show her the quiet, breathing practice the scholar taught you. As you walk home together, the two of you laugh softly about how neither of you could have imagined having this conversation even a month ago. Back at home that evening, as you prepare your dinner of millet and steamed greens, you find yourself reflecting on just how intertwined these practices have become with your daily life. No longer are they isolated cures for a specific ailment. They are simply part of how you move through the world now, with intention, with care, and with an awareness of the delicate rhythms that govern both your body and the life around you. You recall how the healer once told you that, in ancient China, the role of the physician was not just to cure illness, but to teach people how to live in such a way that illness, and in your case, insomnia, rarely had the chance to take hold. Preventive care was considered the highest form of medicine, a philosophy deeply embedded in traditional Chinese medicine. And you understand that now, in a way you couldn't have before, that wellness is not just about fixing what is broken, but about nurturing what is already working, supporting the fragile balance that allows you to thrive. Historians still argue about the extent to which such preventive health philosophies were practiced among ordinary villagers, or whether they were primarily the domain of scholars and the wealthy. But standing here, pouring yourself a cup of tea As dusk settles over your village, you know without a doubt that these teachings have taken root in your own simple life. That evening, after finishing your meal and washing the earthenware bowl in the cold water from the well, you sit once again at the threshold of your home, watching as the first fireflies begin to appear among the tall grass. The sky is painted with soft streaks of lavender and rose, the first stars pricking through the darkening canvas overhead, and within you there is no anxiety, no dread, no whispered fear about the night to come, only a quiet readiness. You step inside, preparing your sleeping space as always, warming the stones, adjusting the quilt, and sitting quietly on your mat to let your breath settle. You recall the monk's words. Let your mind be as the moon, present but not grasping. And so you sit, eyes half-lidded, breath deepening, thoughts drifting by without needing to chase or hold on to any of them. After some time, you extinguish the oil lamp, lie back on your mat, and feel the familiar warmth of the stones at your feet, anchoring you once again to the earth beneath you. You close your eyes, listening to the gentle whisper of bamboo leaves brushing against the side of your home, the distant call of a night bird, and the slow, steady beat of your own heart. And as sleep arrives, not with a crash, but like a quiet guest slipping through an open door, you realize just how far you've come, that what once felt impossible is now as natural as the changing of the seasons, as inevitable as the sun setting behind the mountains. You smile faintly in the dark, knowing that tomorrow and the night after and all the nights to come, you will welcome sleep not with fear, but with open arms. And that, perhaps, is the true gift of this journey. Not just the return of sleep itself, but the transformation of your relationship with it, from something you chased to something you now simply invite. Days turn into weeks, and the seasons begin their slow, inevitable shift from the soft warmth of spring into the lush fullness of summer. The rice fields swell with vibrant green shoots, and the air grows thick with the scent of blooming lotus flowers from the village ponds. And with each passing evening, your rituals for sleep deepen, not out of necessity, but out of reverence. What once began as acts of desperation have transformed into sacred rhythms, threads woven into the fabric of your everyday life. Tonight, as the summer insects begin their chorus in the tall grass, you decide to make a new addition to your evening practice, a short session of qigong, the ancient system of gentle movements and breathing techniques known to harmonize the flow of qi throughout the body. The healer suggested it last week, reminding you that qigong is not just for building strength or flexibility, but for calming the mind, settling the spirit, and preparing the body for restorative sleep. You step out into your small courtyard, where the worn stone tiles are still warm from the day's sun, and take a deep, grounding breath. The air is thick with jasmine and the faint aroma of distant wood smoke. Raising your arms slowly above your head, you begin the first of the movements the healer showed you, embracing the moon, a gentle arc of the arms, as if holding an invisible sphere of light. With each exhale, you feel your chest soften, your shoulders release, and your feet root more firmly into the earth. You move seamlessly into parting the clouds, sweeping your arms in wide circles, clearing away any lingering tension or stray thoughts that might follow you into sleep. And then, finally, you stand still, arms relaxed by your sides, eyes closed, listening only to the quiet symphony of night, the low hum of cicadas, the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface of the pond, the occasional rustle of a bamboo leaf swayed by the evening breeze. You realize, standing there in the dark, that your body knows how to prepare itself for rest now, without anxiety or overthinking. It remembers the rhythm. It trusts the process. You return inside, your muscles loose and your breath steady, and begin the familiar preparations, warming the river stones, lighting a single stick of sandalwood incense, and hanging the new sachet of herbs you've prepared. This one a blend of mugwort, swanzao wren, and honeysuckle blossoms you foraged from the edge of the marsh. Just that morning, you sit on your mat, as always, for a moment of quiet reflection, letting the day fall away, leaving only the present moment, filled with stillness and the faint scent of smoke and herbs. Historians still argue about whether qigong was originally practiced explicitly for health and sleep, or whether its early iterations were more spiritual in nature, designed to cultivate longevity and internal power. But for you, it serves all of these purposes and more. A bridge between movement and rest, between the external world of daily labor and the internal sanctuary of your own quiet mind. Lying down on your mat, your toes pressing into the heat of the stones, your eyes flutter closed almost instinctively. No longer do you brace yourself for the restless cycle that once haunted your nights. Now there is only gratitude for the rituals, for the wisdom passed down through generations, for the simple, undeniable fact that you have healed, that your relationship with sleep is no longer fraught, but tender, deliberate, sacred. As you drift off, you think briefly of your neighbor, whom you gifted the sachet of herbs to just days ago, and wonder if she too is lying in her bed now, breathing deeply, her spirit at peace. And you think of the healer, the scholar, the monk with his flute, all the people who played their part in guiding you back to this place of ease. You understand now that sleep, in this ancient tradition, is not an isolated act, but a communal one, woven through with shared wisdom, family stories, cultural rituals, and the quiet, patient support of those who care enough to teach what they know. The moon hangs full and luminous outside your window, casting a pale glow across your room, and in the distance, the village bell tolls once, marking the arrival of midnight. But you don't hear it. You're already somewhere deeper, somewhere softer, somewhere safe. The days grow longer, and the village air thickens with the heady fragrance of ripening melons and wild honeysuckle. The summer solstice approaches, a time when the villagers prepare for both celebration and reflection. You notice, as the festival draws near, that many of your neighbors speak of their own sleep troubles. Some complain of waking too early in the heat, others of restless legs or dreams too vivid to bear. You listen with quiet understanding, realizing how universal this struggle is, how ancient. One afternoon, the healer invites you to help her prepare a special seasonal tonic, a cooling blend designed to balance the body's qi during the oppressive heat, and most importantly, to promote better sleep. You meet her in her garden, where rows of mint, lotus, astragalus, and honeysuckle sway in the warm breeze. Together, you kneel beside the plants, gently plucking the most tender leaves, careful not to disturb the roots. She explains that these herbs help to clear excess heat from the body, a common cause of summer insomnia in traditional Chinese medicine. Too much heat here, she says softly, pressing her palm over your chest, and the Shen, the spirit, cannot settle. You nod, understanding now how your insomnia was never a singular problem, but part of a greater web of imbalances affected by seasons, food, emotions, and even the unspoken tensions of daily life. After gathering the herbs, you help her prepare the tonic, slowly simmering the honeysuckle blossoms and mint in a clay pot, allowing the mixture to reduce until the air is thick with a cool, herbal aroma. As the pot bubbles quietly, the healer tells you stories of how ancient families would prepare similar tonics each season, teaching their children which herbs to gather, how to dry them, and the right times to drink the brews. It wasn't just about health. It was about belonging, about knowing your place in the cycle of nature and community. Historians still argue about the efficacy of these seasonal tonics. Some claim their benefits are largely symbolic, while others cite modern research validating the use of herbs like lotus and astragalus for calming the nervous system. But here, in this garden, surrounded by buzzing dragonflies and the distant song of a cuckoo, the debate feels irrelevant. The act of preparing the tonic, the gathering, the boiling, the sharing, is itself a form of healing. Once the brew is ready, the healer pours you a small cup. You sip slowly, letting the cool bitterness coat your tongue, then settle in your belly like a soft weight. It's not sweet, but it is deeply satisfying. That night, after returning home and performing your usual evening rituals, you add the final touch, a cup of the summer tonic, still faintly warm from the afternoon's preparation. You sit on the threshold of your home, watching the last fireflies dance above the rice paddies, the moon a sliver in the velvet sky. The tonic soothes you from the inside out, cooling the last remnants of the day's heat, signaling to your body that it is time to slow, to soften, to rest. As you lie down, stones warmed at your feet, the scent of herbs drifting from above, you marvel again at how much has changed. How these small, patient acts of care have transformed not only your nights, but your days too. No longer do you live at odds with sleep, bracing against its absence. You live alongside it, preparing for it gently, trusting it to arrive in its own time. And as your eyes close, your breath slowing to match the rhythm of the crickets outside, you realize that this, too, is a form of celebration, not loud like the festivals, but quiet and deeply personal, a nightly honoring of your body, your spirit, and the wisdom of those who came before you. As the summer festival approaches, the entire village becomes a flurry of preparation. Lanterns are hung along the narrow stone alleys, their crimson silk glowing softly in the humid twilight, while vendors set up wooden stalls offering sweet rice cakes, steamed buns, and fragrant bundles of incense. You find yourself swept up in the excitement, helping your neighbors prepare paper boats to float on the river and weaving flower crowns with the children who chase each other between the tall bamboo stalks. But even in the midst of the celebration, you remain mindful of your evening ritual. You know now that festivals, with their feasts, music, and late nights, can easily disrupt the delicate balance you've worked so hard to restore. So when dusk falls and the first of the firecrackers crackles across the sky, you slip quietly away from the crowd, walking back along the familiar path toward your home. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and sweet osmanthus, mingling with the faint traces of the day's heat still radiating from the earth beneath your feet. Once home, you perform your evening preparations with the same deliberate care as always. You light a single sandalwood incense stick, its thin column of smoke spiraling upward. You warm the river stones, nestling them in their basket by the hearth before placing them by your sleeping mat. You sip your cup of herbal tonic, feeling its familiar coolness soothe your body after the day's exertions. Then you sit, as always, in quiet reflection, listening to the muffled sounds of distant laughter, music, and celebration carrying faintly on the wind from the village square. Historians still argue about how much ordinary villagers in ancient China prioritized sleep during festivals and harvest seasons. Some scholars suggest that these were times of social obligation, where sleep was sacrificed in favor of communal activity. Others contend that even amid celebration, the rhythms of nature and the body held sway, ensuring rest was still honored. You've chosen the latter. You've learned the importance of guarding this space, of treating your sleep not as a passive afterthought, but as something worth preserving even amid joy and revelry. As you lie down, the faint hum of festival drums fading in the distance, you marvel at how natural this has become. What was once an anxious routine is now a cherished ritual, a moment of grounding that connects you not only to yourself, but to your ancestors who performed these same acts under the same moon. Centuries before you, you think briefly of the healer, who is likely still in the square, tending to others who might need herbs or comfort before the night is over, and of the scholar, who is probably seated on his porch with a cup of tea, watching the lanterns float downstream in quiet reflection. As your body softens against the familiar contours of your mat, your toes curling toward the gentle warmth of the stones, you let your breath deepen, slowing to match the peaceful cadence of the night outside. Tonight, even with the sounds of celebration drifting faintly through the air, you feel entirely at ease. No longer do you feel torn between the demands of the external world and the needs of your own body. You've found a way to honor both, joining the festival by day and returning to rest by night. And in doing so, you've discovered something profound. That sleep, in its truest form, is not the opposite of living, but a vital part of it, a sacred pause that allows life to unfold in all its fullness and complexity. As you close your eyes, the final burst of fireworks explodes somewhere far off in the hills, painting the night sky with fleeting streaks of light. But you don't stir. You're already drifting, carried gently by the rituals you've so carefully built into the cool, quiet embrace of sleep. The days after the festival pass in a kind of golden haze, the intensity of summer softening as the first hints of autumn begin to creep in. The lotus flowers in the ponds start to wilt, their petals falling one by one into the still water, while the cicadas, once a constant chorus, begin to quiet. You notice that your sleep, too, shifts with the season. Where once the oppressive heat made it difficult to settle, now the cooler nights invite a deeper, more restorative rest. But the healer warns you that as the season turns, your body will require new kinds of care. Autumn, she says, is a time when dryness begins to invade, and the lung system, closely connected to both breath and sleep, can become imbalanced. She offers you a new blend of herbs, this time including white mulberry leaf, apricot kernel, and a touch of honey to moisten the lungs and prepare your body for the colder months ahead. You accept the bundle gratefully, marveling at how attuned she is to the changes of the year and how these subtle shifts have such profound effects on your body and spirit. That evening, you sit on your porch, sipping the new herbal infusion, watching as the first yellow leaves drift lazily from the tall poplar trees that line the edge of the village. The air smells different now, crisper, edged with the faintest hint of smoke from the first evening fires lit in preparation for the coming chill. You feel the change not just in the landscape, but within yourself, a settling, a turning inward, as if your very bones recognize the need to slow down, to conserve energy, to prepare for the quiet of winter. That night, as you prepare for bed, you add a new ritual to your routine, a brief moment of gratitude, not just for the sleep you have reclaimed, but for the seasons, the elements, the people who guided you here, and the ancient traditions that taught you how to listen to your own needs with patience and care. You warm your stones, light your incense, and sit quietly in the familiar stillness of your room, now made even cozier by the early promise of autumn. Historians still argue about the origins of seasonal medical advice in traditional Chinese medicine, whether it developed through careful observation over millennia or was formalized later by imperial scholars. But as you sip your tea and feel your body relax into its new rhythm, you realize that for you, the distinction doesn't matter. What matters is that these practices have connected you more deeply to the earth, to your community, and to your own well-being. You lie down on your mat, quilt pulled snugly over your chest, the faint aroma of herbs mixing with the cool autumn air that drifts through the open window, and as you close your eyes, listening to the soft rustle of dry leaves outside, you feel not only at peace but profoundly in harmony with the world around you. You have come to understand that sleep is not a static goal to be achieved, but a dynamic process that moves with the cycles of nature, just as you do. And this awareness, more than any herb or ritual, has become the foundation of your rest. As you drift off, you smile faintly, knowing that tomorrow and the day after and all the nights to come, you will continue to meet each season with curiosity, care and the quiet confidence of someone who has learned at last how to sleep well. Autumn deepens, and with it comes the first sharp chill in the morning air, a crispness that lingers long after the sun has climbed above the hills. You find yourself waking before dawn, not out of restlessness, but out of a quiet appreciation for these early hours, when the mist hangs low over the rice paddies and the village is still wrapped in silence. Your sleep has grown richer, more profound, as your evening rituals evolve with the season's demands. At the healer's suggestion, you've begun adding a new step to your routine, a gentle foot bath in warm ginger and mugwort water, a practice long believed to draw down excessive yang energy from the head and encourage a peaceful descent into rest. Each evening, after your simple meal and walk along the leaf-strewn paths, you prepare the bath in a shallow wooden basin, filling it with steaming water and handfuls of dried herbs. The scent rises around you, sharp, earthy, grounding, as you slowly lower your feet into the warmth, feeling the tension of the day dissolve with each passing minute. As you sit, soaking your feet, you gaze out at the shifting colors of the trees, their leaves now turning deep shades of amber, crimson, and gold. The world is preparing to let go, to retreat into the quiet of winter. And so are you. This season of release invites you to pare back even further, to simplify not just your actions, but your thoughts, your expectations, your very way of being. You notice how your body, too, has begun to crave earlier nights, heavier meals, longer periods of rest, a natural slowing that you no longer resist but welcome as part of the cycle. Historians still argue whether the concept of aligning daily life so closely with the seasons was consciously taught among all classes of ancient Chinese society, or whether it emerged more intuitively from generations of observation and adaptation. Regardless, you now experience it as undeniable truth. The shift in the air, the taste of the herbs, the feel of the warm foot bath, they all signal to you what your body has known all along, that health and sleep with it depend on your ability to attune to nature's subtle rhythms. After your foot bath, you dry your feet carefully, wrap them in soft linen, and move through the rest of your evening preparations with even more deliberation than usual. You've replaced the summer herbs in your sachet with warming blends, dried slices of ginger, cinnamon bark, and dried tangerine peel, all known for their ability to promote circulation and comfort during the colder months. Tonight, the wind whistles softly through the cracks in the wooden shutters, carrying with it the faint rustle of the last few leaves falling from the poplars. You pull your quilt closer, feeling the comforting weight of it settle over your chest as you lie down, the familiar warmth of the river stones at your feet, anchoring you once again to this simple, profound ritual of rest. You realize that your relationship with sleep has evolved beyond mere necessity. It has become a kind of pilgrimage, a journey you undertake each night with reverence and gratitude. Each gesture, the warming of the stones, the lighting of the incense, the soaking of your feet, feels like a stepping stone, leading you steadily toward the peaceful shores of sleep. And as you close your eyes, listening to the wind outside, and the steady beat of your own heart, you know that even as the world grows colder and darker, your inner landscape remains warm, calm, and deeply rooted in the traditions that have guided you here. You smile faintly in the dark, letting go of the day with ease, knowing that you've not only reclaimed your sleep, but transformed it into a nightly act of ritual and restoration. The first frost comes quietly one morning, dusting the rooftops and fields with a delicate layer of silver. You breathe in the sharp, clean air as you step outside, watching your breath form brief clouds before disappearing into the crisp autumn sky. The season has turned fully now, and with it, your sleep takes on a new depth, as though the longer nights themselves are wrapping you in their own kind of quilt. The healer visits you one afternoon, carrying a bundle of dried herbs tied with a strip of silk. Time for moxibustion, she says with a small smile. You've heard of the practice, burning mugwort near specific acupoints on the body to promote circulation and strengthen internal qi, but you've never tried it. Tonight, after your usual rituals, she shows you how. You sit comfortably by the hearth, feet tucked beneath you, as she lights the tightly packed moxa stick and holds it near the acupoint just below your navel, a place she explains is essential for grounding your yang qi, preventing it from scattering and disturbing your sleep. The heat is penetrating but soothing, sinking deep into your core as the gentle scent of mugwort smoke fills the room. You close your eyes, feeling how the warmth calms not just your body, but your thoughts, melting away the small anxieties that sometimes still linger at the edges of your mind. Historians still argue whether moxibustion was primarily practiced for preventive health or as a treatment for specific ailments like insomnia. But as the soothing heat sinks into your belly, you realize it doesn't matter. What matters is how it makes you feel now. Steady, calm, ready. After the session, you thank the healer, who packs up her tools and leaves you with instructions to repeat the practice every few nights as the weather grows colder. That evening, as you prepare for bed, you notice how your rituals have evolved in response to the shifting season. The foot baths are now hotter, with more ginger. The herbs in your sachet are more pungent, warming, and your evening tea has been replaced with a stronger decoction of astragalus and goji berries, known for supporting the body through the colder months. As you lay down, pulling the quilt up to your chin, you reflect on how your approach to sleep now mirrors the wisdom of the changing world around you. You've learned that sleep is not a fixed state to be forced, but a dynamic relationship that must be nurtured season by season, moment by moment. The wind howls softly outside, rattling the bamboo chimes that hang from the eaves. But within your small home, there is only warmth, stillness, and the gentle crackle of the last embers in the hearth. You close your eyes, letting your breath slow, your body soften, and your mind drift into that familiar, welcoming space you've come to know so well. As sleep takes you, you feel deeply grateful, not just for the rest itself, but for everything you've learned along the way. The herbs, the rituals, the healers and teachers, the quiet wisdom of nature, and most of all, your own capacity to listen, adapt, and heal. You have not just overcome your insomnia, you have transformed it into a path, one that leads you, night after night, into the peaceful embrace of sleep, carried by traditions as old and enduring as the mountains that surround your village. By the time winter settles fully over the village, blanketing the terraced fields in crisp frost and turning the river's edge to brittle ice, your sleep has become as natural and dependable as the changing seasons. The days are shorter now, the sun retreating behind the mountains, earlier with each passing evening, urging all living things to rest, to conserve, to prepare for renewal. You spend your afternoons helping your neighbors stack firewood and mend roofs, working with hands warmed by thick layers of cotton cloth and wool wraps. But as dusk approaches, you once again turn inward to the small sanctuary you've built for yourself, your home, your rituals, your rest. Tonight, you prepare your foot bath with a stronger decoction of ginger and cinnamon, the spicy aroma mingling with the faint scent of pine smoke that drifts from the hearth. The healer had warned you, winter is the time of the kidneys, the seat of ancestral qi, and neglecting them through overexertion or irregular sleep can lead to depletion. So you take extra care now, honoring the season's demand for stillness and replenishment. After soaking your feet, you move through your now familiar sequence. You warm the river stones by the fire, hang your winter blend of herbs, now rich with astragalus, licorice root, and a hint of aged tangerine peel, above your bed, and sip a cup of goji berry tea, sweetened lightly with honey to moisten the dryness of the season. You sit for a few minutes on your mat, listening to the wind as it whistles softly through the bare branches outside, your breath sinking with the quiet rhythm of the world settling into its winter slumber. Historians still argue about how much attention ordinary villagers in ancient China paid to these seasonal medical prescriptions. Some believe such detailed adjustments were primarily the domain of scholars and healers, while others argue that this knowledge was embedded deeply within the collective wisdom of rural life, passed quietly from grandmother to grandchild, from elder to apprentice. You believe it must have been the latter. How else could these practices feel so instinctive now, so rooted in the very rhythms of your body? As you lie down, the quilt heavy and warm over your chest, you press your feet against the stones, feeling their steady heat infuse your body with a quiet strength. Your room is dark, but for the faint glow of the embers in the hearth, their crackling sounds offering a soft, familiar lullaby. The bamboo chimes outside have fallen silent, stiffened by the frost, and even the village dogs seem to understand that this is a time for retreat, for long, undisturbed sleep. As you close your eyes, letting the day fall away like the last autumn leaf, you realize that your relationship with sleep has grown beyond even what you once imagined possible. It is no longer something to chase or conquer, but something you live alongside, honoring it with small, deliberate acts of care and respect. You breathe deeply, the herbal scents mingling with the clean, cold air that drifts through the cracks in your wooden shutters, and smile faintly in the dark. You have not only reclaimed your nights, you have woven them into the fabric of your days, creating a life where rest is not an interruption of productivity, but its foundation. And as the snow begins to fall softly outside, blanketing the village in white, you drift gently into the warmth of sleep, cradled by the timeless wisdom that has carried you here. Winter deepens, bringing with it nights so long and silent they feel almost infinite, as if the world itself is holding its breath beneath the heavy quilt of snow that covers every rooftop and pathway in the village. By now, your evening rituals have become second nature, each movement practiced, perfected, and cherished. You warm the river stones by the hearth as usual, but the healer has suggested a new addition, a broth made from black sesame, walnuts, and goji berries, slowly simmered to nourish your kidney qi, vital during these frigid months. The broth is thick and nutty, its warmth spreading through your belly like an internal hearth, anchoring you even more firmly in your body as you prepare for another night of deep, restorative sleep. As you sip, you watch the snowflakes drift lazily outside your small window, the moonlight turning them into silver flecks against the inky darkness. You realize, as you sit there, that sleep has become something you no longer even think about. It comes as naturally as breath, as inevitable as the seasons. What once felt like an insurmountable barrier has transformed into a quiet, ever-present companion. And with that shift, other changes have come too. You notice how your days feel different, lighter, more focused, as if the fog that once weighed on your mind has finally lifted. You work more efficiently in the fields, move more gracefully through your chores, and even your interactions with your neighbors feel infused with a newfound patience and presence. One morning, while helping to shovel snow from the village path, an elder pauses, leaning on his wooden staff, and says quietly, "You've changed." You nod, smiling softly, knowing exactly what he means. Sleep has given you back more than just your nights. It has given you back yourself. That evening, as you prepare your foot bath, now with extra ginger and cinnamon to ward off the biting cold, you reflect on how these rituals have carried you through an entire cycle of the year, from the anxious, sleepless nights of early spring, through the sweltering heat of summer, the crisp transitions of autumn, and now into the deep quiet of winter. Historians still argue about how widely such seasonal practices were adopted across ancient China, whether they were common among all villagers or mostly reserved for the educated elite. But here, in your small corner of the world, you know the answer. They live on in every herbal sachet, every infusion, every mindful act of care that prepares you for rest. After soaking your feet and warming the stones, you sit for a moment longer by the fire, the warmth seeping into your bones as the snow continues to fall outside in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. You think of all the nights you once spent tangled in anxiety, dreading the arrival of darkness, fearing the long hours spent staring at the ceiling, waiting for sleep that never came. And then you think of now, the ease with which you move through your evening rituals, the confidence that when you lie down, your body will know what to do, how to surrender, how to rest. You extinguish the oil lamp, lie back on your mat, the quilt heavy and comforting over your chest, your feet pressing once again into the warmth of the stones. And as you close your eyes, the muffled world outside, softened by the thick blanket of snow, you smile, not just because you know you will sleep well tonight, but because you know that you have built a life where rest is honored, where your needs are met with patience and care, and where sleep is not a battleground, but a homecoming. You exhale slowly, your breath warm against the cold air, and let yourself drift, not away from something, but toward something, toward peace, toward balance, toward the quiet, steady rhythm of a life lived in harmony with the world around you. By midwinter, the village has all but retreated into itself. The fields lie dormant beneath the snow, the river frozen in thick sheets of ice, and most days pass in quiet, punctuated only by the distant sound of a woodcutter's axe or the soft creak of a shutter swinging in the wind. And you too have surrendered to this season of stillness, embracing the long nights not as something to be endured, but as a space for renewal. Your evening rituals are now so deeply ingrained that you move through them without thought, like the practiced steps of a familiar dance. You gather the herbs, simmer the broth, soak your feet, warm the stones, light the incense, each gesture flowing seamlessly into the next, a choreography that prepares both your body and your spirit for the restorative embrace of sleep. Tonight, as you sit by the hearth, the last of the firewood crackling softly beside you, you find yourself reflecting on the year that has passed. You think back to the nights of early spring, when insomnia held you captive, when the very thought of lying down filled you with dread and frustration. And now, here you are, in the heart of winter, at peace with both your nights and your days, having journeyed through the wisdom of the seasons and the traditions of your ancestors to reclaim something that was always yours to begin with, the ability to rest, to let go, to sleep. Historians still argue whether ancient sleep practices were truly as effective as we sometimes romanticize them to be, or whether they were simply the best available tools in a world without modern medicine. But you know the answer in your bones, in your breath, in the ease with which you now move through the dark. The practices work, not because they are magic, but because they are grounded in an understanding of the body as inseparable from the world around it, of sleep as not merely a function, but as a relationship. You lie down for the final time this year, your stones warm at your feet, your body wrapped snugly in the thick quilt, and you feel no fear, no resistance, only a quiet readiness. The snow continues to fall outside, blanketing the village in silence, and the moon hangs high above the mountains, casting a faint silver light through the cracks in your shutters. As your eyes close, you think of all those who came before you, who performed these same rituals, drank these same herbal brews, laid down in homes like yours, listening to the same wind moving through the same trees, and you feel connected to them, to this place, to this moment, and most of all, to yourself. Your breath slows, your heart settles, and sleep arrives quietly, gently, as it always does now, not as a battle, but as a gift. As you drift off, one final thought moves through your mind. You are no longer someone struggling to sleep. You are someone who knows how to rest And that, more than anything, is your triumph. And now, as we come to the end of this journey, take one last deep breath. Let it fill your chest slowly, softly, and then exhale, allowing any remaining tension to melt away into the quiet of the night. Picture yourself there, in your small home, surrounded by the gentle scents of herbs and wood smoke, the warmth of the stones at your feet, and the familiar weight of the quilt resting comfortably over you. Outside, the snow continues to fall silently, layering the earth in soft, endless white, while the bamboo chimes hang still in the frozen air. There is nothing left to do now. Nowhere to go, no tasks left unfinished, just the steady rhythm of your breath, the slow beat of your heart, and the peaceful embrace of rest surrounding you like the quiet hush of winter itself. Your mind can drift freely now, like a small leaf floating gently down the river, carried effortlessly by the currents of your own well-earned calm. Let the last sounds you hear be the faint crackle of the hearth, the occasional sigh of the wind through the trees, and the soothing, steady pulse of life moving all around you, unseen but always present. Know that as you rest, you are part of a tradition that stretches back through centuries, through every healer, every scholar, every villager who has ever prepared their bed for sleep with care and intention. And as you drift even deeper now, let yourself feel the simple, profound truth that rest is not something you have to earn, or struggle for, or chase. It is yours. It has always been yours. And now, safely cradled in that understanding, you can let go completely, allowing sleep to carry you wherever it needs to, softly, gently, quietly, until morning comes.